Everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be doing a Draw My Life video like most successful YouTubers do. However, right now I'm taking that major L because I can't draw a W. Anyways, we can get the video going.
What are you doing? This is irrelevant. Wait, come back, please, we have to present.
Is this the Gandhi way?
Speaking of Gandhi, welcome to our presentation on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, symbolically, of course.
I love cheese.
In this presentation, we will be discussing how Gandhi relates to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
as well as connections to a historical event,
as well as the symbolism for major characters.
Now it's time to meet the Gandhi gang.
Gang. I'm Molly.
I'm Carly.
I'm Bazad.
And I'm Morgan.
Woo!
Hello everybody, my name is Bazad. I'm going to be talking about how Gandhi ties with McMurphy. Well, Gandhi is internationally known for his nonviolent acts to achieve political and social progress, which is something McMurphy has shown in the story One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest, from fighting against Miss Ratched without using any violence to overcome her control of the hospital. In the eyes of millions, Gandhi was known as Mahatma, meaning great soul, which is something McMurphy was in the eyes of the patient. He was the one that saved the patients and set them free from Miss Ratched. Gandhi was exposed to racial discrimination in his time in South Africa. Instead of being afraid like everybody else, he did something about it, while others were in fear of the British. From being asked to remove his turban and refusing to remove it, even knowing there will be consequence in the end, which led to him being kicked out of the train and left isolated at the station, while McMurphy refuses to take his medications, knowing that the big nurse controls everything around him. That's what McMurphy does. He stood up to the big nurse while others did nothing but watch. How Gandhi changed the world. Well, Gandhi flooded the government and the press with reasonable statements about the unfairness and the discrimination against Indians, inspiring hundreds of Indians to sacrifice their livelihood and liberty rather than submitting to laws repugnant to their consequence and self-respect. Gandhi was the catalyst, if not the initiator, of three of the major revolutions of the 20th century: the movement against colonialism, racism, and violence. Even after Gandhi's death, his name has been invoked by the organizations of numerous discriminations and movement.
Now on to how the character of Chief Brahmin applies to this event. Brahmin is mostly a follower. He doesn't take action on his own, but is willing to if encouraged by someone else. In Gandhi's situation, Brahmin is representative of the people who followed Gandhi's instructions and participated in his non-cooperation movement, which will be discussed in more depth later. So how does Nurse Ratched connect to this event? Throughout the novel, Nurse Ratched passed several new rules and regulations in the ward, such as the cigarette restrictions, which can be compared to Parliament's passage of the Rowlatt Acts and the Salt Acts. The Rowlatt Acts gave British colonial authorities emergency powers to suppress any subversive activities. The Salt Acts prevented people in India from collecting and selling their own salt, forcing them to buy it from Britain. This gave the British more control over Indian trade. Additionally, the weekly meetings held by Nurse Ratched can be compared to the Round Table Congress in London, where Gandhi attended, representing the Congress Party.
Gandhi and McMurphy set an example for many. Through the setting of a mental hospital, Ken Kesey was able to establish the antagonist, Nurse Ratched. Much like McMurphy's experience with Nurse Ratched, one of the many groups Gandhi protested against was Britain. While Gandhi was far more peaceful in comparison to McMurphy, both events led to a change in power. McMurphy reminded the patients of their ability to be individuals with the freedom to think and do, similar to what Gandhi pushed for in India. The interactions between Bromden and McMurphy can also be compared to Gandhi and those that he mentored. The history of Gandhi and the story of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest tie in together because in both situations, the people that the hero figure interacted with ended up being stronger than they were previously.
According to Bromden, the Combine is something that the whole world is a part of, but it is easiest for us to see it working in the mental hospital. The Combine, while not an actual machine, is a system that keeps things in order, but only for those who choose to cooperate with it. Those who don't cooperate are considered mentally ill, because it is easier for the majority to tell them they are wrong than to try and work with the new ideas. McMurphy fighting Nurse Ratched is symbolic of him fighting the whole idea of the Combine, but Nurse Ratched is just a face for the Combine. She is a part of the Combine that enforces the idea that those who don't cooperate are mentally ill, but it's a part that McMurphy can actually fight against. This is similar to Gandhi protesting things, like the Rowlatt and Salt Acts and the British wanting to implement a caste system in India. Those were things he could actually protest against, rather than just protesting all of Britain's control over India, as there were specific parts he could argue were unfair. This is similar to the overall idea of the Combine, in that both McMurphy and Gandhi were only able to fight against a certain part of the greater power controlling them, rather than fighting against the entirety of it. Next, we have the Combine and how Gandhi's situation is similar to McMurphy's. The idea of the Combine is actually accepted by some people at the mental hospital, because it is more convenient for them. Similarly, some people in India preferred the British having control, because they thought it was better for them than if they were given the freedom of governing themselves. One of the reasons people in India believed that was because they weren't united. Their lack of unification was also why Britain was able to take control so easily. Again, this is similar to the situation at the hospital. The patients aren't unified and they are living in an every man for himself situation that has been imposed upon them by the Nurse Ratched and other people working in the hospital. Quote, "That's just what that meeting I just sat through reminded me of. A flock of dirty chickens. You want to know who pecks that first peck? It's that old nurse. That's who." End quote. In Chapter 5, McMurphy is describing the meeting as the pecking party, where all the chickens, representative of the patients in this analogy, are set up against each other. McMurphy is also similar to Gandhi in that they both protest against a greater party that has control. For example, Gandhi would use hunger strikes to peacefully protest British control and fight for India's independence. McMurphy refused to take his medication that the nurses gave him and makes the bet that he will break Nurse Ratched, a symbol of him destroying her control over the patients. Gandhi would also organize different ways the people of India could protest against British control, because most people wouldn't have weapons and a violent protest would result in more people being hurt than helped. McMurphy's attempts at peaceful protests are similar in that they rely on a larger number of people participating. Examples of this include when he wants to have the patients vote on their activities and when he sits in front of a blank television with the other accused. Gandhi changed his method of protest after lots of people were injured in his non-cooperation movement. Gandhi started this movement because he recognized that British control over India only would work as long as the people in India would cooperate and abide by the rules of the system. However, he called it off after the Chori Chowra incident that had been part of the movement resulted in the death of a couple of civilians and about 22 policemen. After the incident, Gandhi was arrested and put in prison for 6 years. McMurphy seems to have a similar opinion when it comes to violence. He tends to stick with his peaceful protest techniques until Billy commits suicide and Nurse Ratched blames him for Billy's death and the death of other patients, which results in his attacking her. Afterwards, he is taken away to receive EST, similar to how Gandhi was arrested after the violent Chori Chowra incident.
When doing our research for this project, we discovered a lot of things that we could add to our IB learner profiles. We hope that you were able to do so as well, since there are a lot of connections between the book and Gandhi's struggles with fighting racism and violence in India. Thankfully, through their contributions, the novel and Gandhi were able to spread awareness about the inequality that was going on in their different systems, their different combines, if you will.